Welcome to the thrilling world of Security Squawk, where we explore cybersecurity. Guiding you through online threats, we'll aid you in understanding safety protocols and trends. Meet our gurus, Brian from Exact IT, Reginald from Arc Solvers, and Randy from Tech Rescue. Together, we'll delve into current events and hot cybersecurity topics, helping you comprehend their impact. Stay informed, stay secure. Security Squawk, the business of cybersecurity. Buckle up, let's dive in.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Security Squawk podcast. I'm Brian here with Andre and Randy. How are you guys?
Pretty good. Hey, yourself?
Doing well, thank you. Thank you for asking. Managing the break in the weather here, as always, up here in the Northeast, as it gets a little bit colder in the mornings and starting to warm up here in the afternoon. Though, thank God. Guys, on the show this week, we got a ton of stuff to dive into, and we got a short amount of time to get it in, so I'm just going to jump right into it. This week on the show, we're going to talk about a series of high-profile cyber attacks that have stirred significant concern across various sectors in the United States. We're going to discuss some aggressive tactics by this group called Storm 0501, identified by Microsoft as a gang targeting U.S. companies that have hybrid cloud environments. We're going to talk about what they're doing and the repercussions of the ransomware attacks that they are deploying. We're also going to discuss this ransomware attack on Richmond Community Schools, another school district here in the U.S. hit by ransomware. We're going to talk about this unsettling breach at UMC Hospital in Lubbock, Texas, kind of near Randy's neck of the woods. So he'll have some insight on the lay of the land there and what that means to the communities that hospital serves. Additionally, we're going to uncover the link between the Lockbit ransomware group and Russian-backed cybercrime syndicates, highlighting the global scale of these groups and really painting a picture that businesses are not fighting dudes in a basement. They're fighting Russian governments. And literally, that's what we're going to talk about towards the end of the show today. So we'll get right into it. But before we do, remember, we do have a fee for the show. The fee is simple. Share the show, right? Like us, subscribe, whatever you can do, whatever platform you're consuming us on, Facebook, LinkedIn, podcasting platforms. There's a way that you can rate the show, share the show. If you do that, it helps other people find this content. We see the show growing. We continue to bring you this content ad-free.
Also, happy Cybersecurity Month, October the 1st.
Oh my God.
Every month is Cybersecurity Month around here.
Yeah, it's funny because like we were talking about this in the office because at the end of the day, they're like, hey, would you want to do anything around Cybersecurity Month? And we used to, in the past, heavily market around it, but we just didn't find that people cared too much. So we'll do a little bit around it, but we're not, I didn't even remember that today was the beginning of Cybersecurity Month. That's how in tune to it I am. So thank you for reminding me.
Yeah. You'll see some places where they're, all of a sudden that's the big thing and they're doing videos every day, and which is great. But, I would say we're doing it every day. Like
we are doing it. We do it every day, every week. I mean, we show up every week for the last 4 years delivering this content. And I would say we're giving people way more insight than probably anything you're going to get from the stuff you're going to see that people are going to put out marketing wise. So, all right, boys, let's get into it. So let's talk about this Storm 5001 before we get into these ransomware attacks, because I think this is an interesting one. So Microsoft reported that Storm 0501 is a financially motivated cyber criminal group that's been active since about 2001. And they used to run a ransomware called Sabbath targeting U.S. schools, but they've evolved to a ransomware as a service group. So essentially, they'll help you deploy ransom. they'll help you deploy ransomware families like AlphaV, Black Hat, Hive, Huntress, Hunters International, Lockbit, and Embargo. So they work with all these different ransomware, software providers to deploy that for what's the other piece of this, initial access brokers, right? And Microsoft is saying that this group is now aggressively targeting. And when they come out with these bulletins, guys, you have to understand that they're doing it because they see a ton of this activity in the environments, in their own environment that they have full access and visibility on. And they're saying that they're targeting these hybrid cloud environments across the various U.S. sectors, such as government, law enforcement, manufacturing, and transportation. The same for industries that we basically talk about on this show all the time. The gang uses a multi-stage approach to breach these environments, starting from on-prem systems and then moving laterally to cloud platforms. So let's talk about that, right? What are they doing, right? What does that mean?
Well,
they're getting access where first, and then they're figuring out to go where. Let's talk about that.
Well, so like back in the day, you had your on-premises, which we cool guys call it on-prem, right? So you had your on-prem Active Directory, which is you have a user, that's you, your username and a password. And then on here on the other side, we have Azure AD, which is Microsoft's cloud login. And a hybrid situation is where you have an on-premises server with a local Active Directory, but it's also synced to the cloud. I will say this. Well, everybody says this, what I'm fixing to say. Complexity is the enemy of security. And what do we run into all the time when people have these hybrid cloud and Azure AD on-prem Active Directory, Azure AD hybrids? Is a lot of times they're not set up correctly. They're not really fully aware of all the ins and the outs, and it creates, where bad guys like this can come in. They're creating footholds, persistent footholds in the environment, and then they're also rolling out ransomware from there. But it's in these environments where they have a hybrid local server, which is also synced basically to 365.
Right. And quite frankly, you don't really need to have a server, right? You could just have
Most
computers
cases,
in your environment that are connected to OneDrive or connected to SharePoint, and they're figuring out how to get onto your local systems and then get into your cloud environments, right? But they're not just like getting that into your local environments and just trying a few things. They're throwing the gamut at your network. As it's been reported by Microsoft, that this group mainly exploits weak credentials and overprivileged accounts in these environments to get from computer to computer to eventually get to your cloud. They utilize stolen credentials. Once they're in, they're looking everywhere for stolen credentials. They're looking in your environment to see if they can steal them, or they're looking on the dark web to see if something's already been stolen and you have bad password hygiene in your environment, and they're able to get in and move that way. They're also exploiting vulnerabilities, hoping you don't patch things, so then they can exploit those to move laterally in the network. They will literally have a Swiss Army knife at their disposal when they get inside your network to do things like gain administrative privileges, perform reconnaissance, meaning learning, right? Potentially put a keystroke logger on your environment, and now they're recording every keystroke that your employees are putting in. That's one way, right? Just looking at the data that's being created, right? Emails that are being sent, just gaining more information about your company, about how you operate as they're being undetected in your network, right? They deploy remote monitoring tools and management tools if they can get away with it. They're harvesting credentials to use, to move further in your environment. They'll deploy Cobalt Strike, which you don't want that on your environment at all, so they can move laterally. And then ultimately, they deploy ransomware across the network, which ultimately, if things are syncing the way that these things are set up, your encrypted files will also be synced up to the cloud, right? And then what happens? If you don't have that cloud backed up, you're up the creek, right, guys? And then I guess the other thing I'll point out before I stop talking, I'll toss it to Andre here, is I think this is going to be very successful for this group because I see a lot of companies now who are being sold the cloud in some way, shape, or form by some provider and being told that all you got to do is move over here and we got your cybersecurity covered. Mm-hmm. And they forget about the computers that are sitting in front of them. And they have to be protected too. And that's what this group is exploiting.
Yep, and I'm going to go back a little, Brian, because you really went really fast on that. But let's first talk about, everything that we always talk about in the show every week about when we see credentials that are stolen. There's access brokers where, these bad guys can actually purchase the passwords. All the time we'll be talking about phishing emails. That's another way they can get the passwords. We always talk about how you have these older softwares that's not getting updated. As you mentioned, Citrix, Zoho. So all of these are all the ways that they can get in. And then, like you mentioned, with the remote management tools, these are legit software that they're putting. So your everyday antivirus, if you don't have a zero trust where, you don't just allow anything to run on the computers, they're not going to be caught. And they're going to just think that, oh, this software is, oh yeah, this is a multi-billion-dollar company. They're legit, but they're using legit tools to do bad things. So this is why you can't just have a set it and forget it, letting someone just set up, oh, we want to move to the cloud. Someone comes, moves you to the cloud, and then there's not any type of ongoing monitoring. Because the only way you're going to find out when something is wrong is when you get that ransomware note.
Right. And what they're exploiting is that complexity between the local and the cloud and the hybrid connection, the hybrid sync that it creates. Once again, we see this all the time where what they're actually doing is not that complex. They're just exploiting lack of patching. They're exploiting too many privileges given locally that are then syncing to the cloud, creating, one global admin per every 5 users or who knows what. And they're just taking advantage of stuff that really is not, it's not like they're like coming up with like these crazy ways nobody ever thought of to get in. They're just doing some pretty basic stuff to get in and then using these complex setups against the customer.
Yeah, it's a great point. And what I was thinking as you were saying that, Randy, was simply these guys have like really researched this and figured this out.
Yep.
Like I can't find I'm looking at this report and I'm looking at kind of what Microsoft is saying here. And quite frankly, they've kind of thought of everything. So if this group gets in your environment, all I have to say to you is good luck. You better have you better have a really good cybersecurity company defending your stuff, or you're going to be in a lot of trouble. That's basically what they're saying here. I mean, that's what I'm taking out of it. Because like just to add what's in the report, what I didn't mention before, dude, they're getting into M365 tenants and creating new federated domains so they have persistent backdoor access. So like they're putting things in place so if we get caught, we can still get in through other means.
Yep.
Right. And the other thing is that their ransomware uses scheduled tasks. So that's a little bit more advanced than what we normally see. And the reason that they're doing that is because it maximizes the impact. It allows things to run in a way that the security tools are not looking for.
Yep.
So it's, when we talk about these security tools, a lot of times they're predicated on things like what's known as anomalous behavior, meaning that's not normal behavior for this environment or this computer or whatever. And somebody looks into it at that point, right? These types of things are things that kind of make it harder to find that behavior. So very sophisticated, very, very, very well thought out. process to attack a company, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty wild what's going on.
Well, I wouldn't say that it's sophisticated so much as it's thorough, because they haven't really come up with some brand new thing. They're just taking advantage of everything,
right? But
except for that federation part, that is a little
right. But I think in terms of like the general population, not us talking as cyber experts, right? But the general population, this would be considered a sophisticated attack versus, you know, an unsophisticated attack where somebody clicks on a phishing email and lets somebody walk in the door, right?
Right.
And then, you know, the next thing is ransomware. They don't do all this other stuff before they try to deploy the ransomware.
There was a book called "What If I Did It," and if you guys remember that book, it was about, you know, if I did this crime, this is how I would do it. And we talked about like the nation states and how we're really we're fighting against, you know, countries like Russia that are hiring these guys. So, you know, in cyber, you have the blue team, which is your defense, and your red team, that's offense. So I'm sure they're going to these guys that their job is on the you know, offensive side, and they're saying, you know, hey, sit back for a second. You know how you're set up. If we wanted to break into your systems, which ways could we go about doing it? And they're collaborating. So it is interesting analogy, I know, but they're not only just trying to break in on one side, but I'm sure they're consulting with people that have experience on protecting, and then just saying, hey, these are some holes and these are some ways you can probably get in.
So we got to move along. It's good discussion, but we only have about 10 minutes left. So we got a lot of topics to blow through here. So let's move into this Richmond Community Schools ransomware attack, guys, and talk about this for real quick. Richmond Community Schools in Indiana experienced a ransomware attack last Friday, I believe it was, on the 27th. It's led to a breach of their data services network and the district's power school system, which contains student and staff information. It was compromised during the attack. In the response to the breach, the school district has temporarily shut down its data services network, and they are actively investigating the incident with the assistance of local, state, and federal agencies. The attack has disrupted the school's normal operations, prompting the district to announce a 2-hour delay for all activities starting Monday, September 30th. And additionally, morning half-day preschool classes are canceled. Teachers are preparing to conduct classes using low-tech lesson plans over the next few days until full system functionality can be restored. And Richmond Community Schools has committed to keeping the community informed as more details become available, and is urging patience and understanding during the recovery process. Thoughts here, guys?
Yeah.
Every day we're talking about
trying to go first.
Oh, sorry. Now, all I was going to say is I think every week we're talking about a K-12 or college university. Go ahead, Randy.
Well, and I'm over here shaking my head because telling their teachers plan low-tech lessons for the next few days, you know, the key to satisfaction is correct expectations or even low expectations. So don't tell them, oh, you're going to be inconvenienced for the next 3 days because you're going to have a million upset teachers in 4 days when you're not back online. So just tell them, hey, for the next month or two, we may be having to do offline low-tech type lessons, and you won't have access to your systems, but we'll work it. We'll fix them as fast as we can. I just think they're shooting themselves in the foot here, telling them to, you know, be ready for the next few days. And you know, can you imagine the disruption? People have built their whole work schedules around their kids going to school, and now they're having to go in 2 hours late. Is everybody just going to go to work 2 hours late, or how's that going to work? Anyway.
Yeah.
Yep. It's never fun.
Thinking about my school, my son, when you go into the school, you have a badge that has to let them in, like a key fob system. You have attendance is the same badge. They have, before they go in the class, they have to put the badge. Then the teachers, they're probably like, all right, so you want me to do low tech? So I got to print something. It's got to be paper and pen, but I don't have access to the printer. So how are they going to like even do this? Just tell everybody to bring a sheet of paper and, you know, some pens from home, and just like, it just won't, I don't know.
Yeah, especially when these teachers have been taught to teach on this tech for probably the last
Yeah.
several years now, right? So yeah, I mean, it's a big discussion, and it's tough because there's just not enough hours in the day, and there's not enough money in the world that can fund these schools to deal with going to pen and paper like this. I mean, this is a huge and massive inconvenience, as Randy stated, for the families. And you just can see by the response of the school that their heads were buried in the sand when it came to ransomware. I mean, the things that they're saying, they didn't learn from other ransomware attacks that happen all the time around this country. Like look at what the other schools have done and learn from their mistakes. And you can see them already starting to make, the mistakes that we see when companies just don't understand this stuff and like what the true impact is. I think we have a district that is unaware of the repercussions of that data going on the dark web. They got a lot to deal with here in the next, weeks and months, and it's all going to play out in public. So we'll keep everybody informed, but it's not starting off on a good foot. I mean, no ransomware attack is, but the response, you can learn a lot about how an organization, how well prepared they were, both how good of a job they do of protecting what they need to protect, and then how well prepared they were to deal with this based on how you see them responding in the days and weeks after the event. So we'll keep everybody updated on this event, and as we learn more, we will let you know. So guys, Lockbit ransomware group and Evil Corp connection unveiled by UK's National Crime Agency. And I think this ties in nicely with both of our previous two articles, but the first one especially, guys, because they've basically said that one of the most notorious ransomware groups that has ever been run has basically been run by Russians with ties to the Russian government. So essentially, when you pull it all back, businesses every day are defending their own private businesses against the Russian government. That's what we're talking about here. Agree or disagree?
No.
You done typing your email, Randy?
Yeah. No.
Come back to the podcast now.
I mean, that's not wrong. We talked about this in the green room. I mean, that depending on your ransomware attack, when it happens, it could be a simple run-of-the-mill bloke, if you will, or it could literally be a nation state. And there are certain sectors where you're more likely to run into a nation state. And I would probably throw out that the nation state's going to become more and more likely as opposed to less likely because of geopolitics and things that are going around in the world.
I agree with you there, but I think this is the first time we have direct evidence that it's always been assumed that the Russian government had a hand in some of these bigger groups, but there's been no hardcore evidence until now. This really rips, the blindfold off and confirms what most people already suspected. But now we have absolute confirmation. If business leaders don't take heed and realize what they're up against, it could get pretty ugly here, as I've been saying for a long time. Thoughts, Andre?
No, just going back to my previous point, you got the Russian government, you have your everyday cyber guy in Russia, and they're sharing resources, strategies, ransomware code between the two groups. And they're just, solidifying a partnership, I guess, if you want to call it for that. And right. And they're saying, hey, if you're going to do this, use this code that we stole from the US.
But there's no doubt there's a whole process behind what they're doing, right? When they get inside of a company, I'm sure they have to seek permission before they ransomware attack them, right? Maybe because maybe the Russian government doesn't want you to ransomware attack. Oh, we got access to that network. Let's just sit in there and just steal stuff from them, right? And that's all at play here. And if you don't think it is, it definitely is, right?
I think that, they did that with the DOJ. So I'm sure every Tuesday morning there's a 3 o'clock standing meeting that, they all get together and have their calls.
All right, cool. So let's get this last topic in. It looks like we're going to get it in time. So amazing. UMC Hospital in Lubbock, Texas. This is up Randy's alley because it's in his neck of the woods. University Medical Center in Lubbock is currently experiencing a significant disruption due to a ransomware attack that began last Thursday. The attack forced the hospital to divert patients and other local healthcare facilities as it deals with the IT outage. Real quickly, the IT systems, including their phone systems and patient portal, are severely affected, preventing access to patient messages and other critical digital resources. Emergency protocols have been activated, with UMC diverting both emergency and non-emergency ambulance traffic to nearby hospitals. And despite the IT challenges, it says that their emergency department, urgent care, and physician clinics remain operational, but emergency ambulances are being redirected. So we've talked about this ad nauseum about the impacts to these communities with these hospital ransomware events, guys. Randy, give us some insight as to the lay of the land here. I think you said this was in the green room, that this was the only trauma hospital, level 1 trauma hospital in the area.
Well,
so fill us in.
So the article says within 400 miles, but Fort Worth is about 300 miles from Lubbock. Where we are now by Austin is about 400 miles. So maybe we're talking one within a 300-mile area. If this is not here, there's literally going to be people out there, though, that will be 400 miles from a trauma center, level 1 trauma center. A level 1 trauma center is where you can take pretty much any kind of accident or something that's gone wrong, and you can take them to that trauma center and they can deal with it. Now, they may not deal with them very often, but they can deal with it, you know, like a shooting or a really bad car crash or something like that. So just to say, you know, that suffices to say, or however that saying goes, that this is very critical infrastructure. And for somebody to then, you know, it'll be a helicopter flight, you know, and so go 150 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour, something like that. You know, so you're talking another hour or two flight probably to another trauma center. You know, there might be one in level 1 in El Paso. I'm not sure. But people don't really understand like how gigantic and sparsely populated West Texas is. So yeah, this is a bad one.
Yeah. And that's if they have a helicopter.
What's that?
That's if they have the helicopter. I was doing some math. A standard ambulance speed of 60 miles an hour on a 400-mile drive could take around 7 or 8 hours.
Yeah. You're almost for sure. They probably have 1 or 2 at the minimum. I don't know for sure, but they probably have 1 or 2 life flight helicopters, you know, on standby there. Most of the, you know, the regional L1 trauma centers are going to have something like that to be able to bring people in.
And then all the errors that could happen with the nurses, right?
Yep. And UMC is collaborating with third-party cybersecurity specialists to resolve issues and restore operations. Although, as Randy rightfully pointed out in a previous discussion, there's no clear timeline for when systems will be fully functional again. And if we know anything about hospital ransomware attacks, it's several weeks before we start to see major functionality returned. So here we go again.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for your time and thank you for your insight on the show. Another good one. And please remember, share the show. And we'll see everyone next week. Take care.